Hello again, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist for the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show on the 23rd day of January, 2021. Up first, light snow falling across the Panhandle, kind of on the increase throughout the afternoon today. And these are the forecast snowfall amounts in quite a few areas here. For tonight into Sunday morning, Juneau to Haines and actually all the way up to Skagway, looking anywhere from 1 to 4 inches of snow, with the 1 to 2 inches expected at Skagway. And then otherwise, Gustavus, Hoona could pick up 1 to 3 inches of snow. Again, snowfall levels down to sea level. Elfin Cove, Pelican, 1 to 2 inches. And Petersburg and Wrangell could pick up 2 to 4 inches of snowfall. And moving on to, hazardous weather graphic, we've got winter weather advisory in effect there for the yellow shaded areas for the northwest coast, Point Hope on down to Kivalina, and Shishmaref there on the northern Seward Peninsula around the Bering Strait coast, Tin City, Wales, Teller in those areas, and even St. Lawrence Island, but St. Lawrence Island to a lesser extent for that advisory is mostly the areas there to the north, Bering Strait northward. But that's out until, 6 p.m. tomorrow, 6 p.m. Sunday afternoon for winds, gusty, or for blowing snow due to gusty winds. 35 mile an hour wind gusts today, for example, Point Hope had visibilities at a quarter mile this afternoon. So that same sort of thing can expect to continue through tonight and in through Sunday until about 6 p.m., which time they'll cancel it or, kick it out longer. Otherwise, that's it for the advisories, with the exception, just came out after I made the chart here, there's a winter weather advisory for snow from Kenai to Homer in that stretch of the Kenai Peninsula, looking for 5 to 7 inches of snow to fall. Again, from Kenai to Homer, already snowing in those areas now, but expected to continue and increase a little bit with, again, 5 to 7 inches until about 5 a.m. Sunday morning. So pretty snowy night coming up for that area. And that's it now for the watches, warnings, advisory. Satellite imagery showing low pressure there south of the Kenai Peninsula, drying out in the westerly flow there on the south side of the system over Kodiak Island, with maybe a few breaks showing up, but definitely shut off in the precipitation. And the front right up along the North Gulf Coast, in across the Panhandle today, and again, kind of a widespread area, light snow falling across all the southeast coast there, especially up to the north areas. But again, and as we saw, several inches more expected tonight into Sunday morning. And pretty light precipitation up along the North Gulf Coast today, with amounts generally less than 1/10 of an inch in most areas. Now, the southern Kenai Peninsula, Port Graham picked up about 1 inch of rainfall, water equivalent. Some of that fell as wet snow, and Homer had rain changing to wet snow this afternoon there, and some snow up into the Kenai area, along with some gusty winds up to 30 miles an hour. And the eastern Alaska Range had some gusty winds as well. The usually windy area there, Delta Junction, seeing gusts 41 miles an hour out of the east-southeast, and I believe temperatures like 20 degrees Fahrenheit, so well above zero on the air temperatures there with that wind. And basically dry up over the northeast quarter of the state, all the way to the eastern Arctic coast. Pretty gusty winds on the eastern Beaufort Sea coast as well, 35 to 40 miles per hour, or 30 to 40 miles an hour out of the east there. Barter Island, along the eastern Beaufort Sea coastline, lighter winds back to the west till you get around the Capes there. Again, Point Hope seeing those northerlies at 35 miles per hour. Otherwise, even stronger winds down over the Alaska Peninsula. Northwest winds there, or west-northwest, or north-northwest, gusted as high as 56 miles an hour at Falls Pass this afternoon, and anywhere from 30 to 40 miles an hour for the entire western Alaska Peninsula. Those winds diminishing for the eastern Aleutians, kind of some ridging moving in ahead of that rather weakening frontal boundary. You can see it almost looks like it's broken in half there around Adak, and then pretty tightly wound system there south of Shimia. Otherwise, not much going on over the Bering Sea. Cooler air coming down. Pribilof's down about 30 degrees there with gusty north to northwest winds. Cold air coming southward, but not a real big shot of cold air. And on the chart for today, you can see trough dropping southward, bringing snow showers there over the southwest coast. Pretty light amounts there. Iliamna, though, picked up several inches of snow in the last 12 hours. And Nome, same thing. They had a couple inches of snow today. And winds picked up, though. Again, the Bering Strait up along the northwest coast. All the snow and wind on the west side of that trough axis that extends into the low center there. That at the surface is somewhere up over the Kenai Peninsula and in the front right along the coastline, in across the Panhandle. And again, mostly snow falling most areas there. Some areas probably seen some mixed rain and snow or just flat out rain, mostly right along the coastline or to the south there, but mostly in the form of snow. And rain and snow kind of warming ahead of that front, pushing into the central Aleutians and then mixing back in the as the winds turn more northeast and northerly there for the Komodorsky Islands. And between the low over the Kenai Peninsula and the low way out over the Aleutians, got a weak area of ridging there over the eastern Bering Sea, central Bering Sea. And tonight that'll shift eastward. And so look for those Alaska Peninsula winds to diminish dramatically this evening, becoming light, variable to light to westerly. And no wind for the southwest coast. Even the winds up along the northwest coast should drop off somewhat, but won't end completely. Snow showers continue. Light snow showers of the Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound. Should be dry for St. Lawrence Island with diminishing winds there. And for scattered snow showers over the southwest mountains. Kuskokwim Valley, chance of snow showers. Increasing northwest winds, Kodiak Island, with minimal chances of precipitation there. Rain and snow North Gulf Coast. And again, several inches of snow for the Panhandle. For tomorrow, Sunday, that frontal boundary actually develops a weak triple point low that swings up toward the Pribilof Islands. So periods of rain or rain and snow for the Pribilofs, and that should become mostly rain down towards sea level for the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula with that warm front, cold front crossing Unmak Island. And then snowfall levels come back down to the west there for mostly wet snow at sea level. Look for the breakover with partial clearing, Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula. Scattered snow showers up through the interior, probably not as widespread as what you got shown on the chart here. It's probably a little overdone on the shading. And then low pressure keeps it, again, snowy at least in through the morning hours for the southeast coast. May start to mix with rain a little bit in the afternoon, but again, anywhere from 1 to 5 inches of snow tonight into midday Sunday. And then the outlook for Monday, very nice conditions over much of interior Alaska. A little cooler on the temperatures, of course, with the clear skies, but the wind's not all that bad anywhere. The main storminess, even south or close enough to Kodiak Island, they'll be affected by that low to the south with kind of a northeast breeze, mixed rain and snow. Rain at sea level on the east side, mixture into Shelikof Strait, and then a trough produces kind of a widespread area of light snow across the northern Bering Sea, breaking out to snow showers to the Pribilofs. High pressure makes for a pretty good day, maybe a partly to mostly sunny kind of day for the Aleutians with fairly light winds. Risk of a few showers along the coast of the Panhandle. Lows for tonight, 30s for the southeast coast and lower 30s for the North Gulf Coast. Upper 20s, south central Alaska, down to 7 on Copper River Basin. Mid to upper 20s, Bristol Bay, lower 30s, Kodiak Island. Up north, all the below zero weather there for the eastern interior. Fairbanks 3 below, 5 below Arctic Village, and 5 to 15 below North Slope in the Arctic coast, with teens down across the Seward Peninsula. Mid to upper 20s for the Aleutians, and upper 20s to lower 30s for the Alaska Peninsula. Highs for tomorrow, 35 to 45, or 30s to lower 40s for the Panhandle. Lower 30s, south central Alaska. Upper 20s to Sitna Valley, to upper 30s there for Kachemak Bay. Mid-teens, Copper River Basin. Mid-30s for Bristol Bay. And teens, single numbers in teens for the north central interior, but below zero north of the Brooks Range, but not too far below. In the 30s, lower to mid for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, lower 40s to near 40 Kodiak Island. And then low temperatures Monday morning, 20s, lower 30s for the Panhandle. Cooler, 10 below Copper River Basin in the valleys there, Gulkana, for example. Single numbers to sit in the valley into the teens for the Kenai Peninsula, upper 20s Kodiak Island. And colder up over the northeast interior, anywhere from 15 to 25 below for the North Slope and the Yukon Flats. Near zero for the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island. Upper 20s, the Aleutians, Bering Sea, and 20s and 30s for the Alaska Peninsula. Highs in the afternoon, 30s for the Panhandle, and
now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to the first line weather graphic for Sunday morning, we've got IFR, central western Arctic coast, right along the coastline, marginal VFR for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast and the North Slope. Next in south of the eastern Brooks Range and across the upper Yukon Valley with some IFR in the flats. And marginal VFR, southern Alaska, with areas of IFR scattered across the region. And a little more widespread IFR, Kuskokwim, Yukon Delta, up across Norton Sound, western Seward Peninsula. And then out in the Bering Sea, main low pressure area producing widespread IFR, western Aleutians, and along the frontal boundary, getting up close to the Pribilofs, and then extending down across the Alaska Peninsula and Fox Islands. Mostly IFR to start the day for the southeast coast. And then that, there we go. That goes mostly marginal for the Panhandle tomorrow afternoon with diminishing snow or snow and rain. And marginal VFR for the eastern North Gulf Coast. VFR breaking out Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, Madagascar to sit in the valley, but marginal VFR on the north and west side of the Alaska Range into the Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, and much of the west central interior, with IFR persisting over the Seward Peninsula to the Bering Strait, but not quite along the northwest coast. And IFR, northern Bering Sea, St. Matthew Island, but it's lifting north of the Pribilofs and then southward, mostly off the southwest coast, down across the Alaska Peninsula to east side on Alaska Island. Pretty good VFR for the Pribilofs, Adak and Atka, and then IFR for the western Aleutians. And then for Monday morning, we've got not too bad up over the northern interior, some patchy areas of IFR over the flats and east central Brooks Range. Otherwise, marginal VFR, central interior, again, Tanana Valley, up across the Kobuk Valley, Selawik, Kotzebue, northwest coast, Buckland, Shishmaref to, say, Tin City, marginal, and also for the extreme western Arctic coast, though, but just some marginal VFR on the central coast, otherwise VFR. And then quite an area of IFR there, northern Bering Sea, St. Matthew Island to Nunivak Island, right along the Yukon Delta coast, into Bristol Bay, and extending up across the Dillingham there into the southern Kuskokwim Valley. IFR, Kodiak Island, but VFR, western Alaska Range, across Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, Madagascar to sit in the valley and the Copper River Basin. Pick up some marginal VFR around Cape Yakataga or Cape St. Elias eastward and across all of the southeast coast. Same thing for the Aleutians. Marginal VFR. Fox Islands, though, looking VFR, and that even becomes more widespread. So a pretty good day there for the eastern Aleutians. Alaska Peninsula looking good in the afternoon. Southern Bering Sea. And mostly VFR for the Aleutians. All the IFR way up to the north there, affecting part of St. Lawrence Island. Marginal VFR band down along the southwest coast. IFR, Kodiak Island. Marginal for the North Gulf Coast, and VFR for the Panhandle. VFR for a good chunk of interior Alaska, some marginal VFR up north of the Brooks Range. And Atuvik and Adigan, both marginal tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR in the forecast. Occasionally marginal for rainy as well. Looks like VFR, but marginal conditions on the northern approach of windy. And Isabel, again, VFR, south side, otherwise marginal. And Mentasta occasionally marginal. Tanita, marginal VFR becoming VFR. And Portage is looking for improvement throughout the day, starting out IFR, becoming marginal, possibly even VFR late in the afternoon. Chilkoot and White, IFR, becoming marginal. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet north of the Fox Islands, crossed, say, just west of Cold Bay, Falls Pass there, and 4,000 feet south of the area at the surface, hugging the North Gulf Coast in across the Panhandle and cutting across St. Paul Island. And icing, really not too much, kind of elevated threat of possible isolated considerable moderate rime icing there for the eastern Aleutians, maybe the Alaska Peninsula and Pribilofs, and then possible mixed icing, just a slight chance there for the western Aleutians, and also mostly down over the Queen Charlotte-Dixon entrance, otherwise icing free for the remainder of the state. Jet stream south of the state, but you can see 85 knots there, just clipping the Alaska Peninsula, and pretty light flow, but upper level ridging starting to cut off there over the north or western Brooks Range, increasing the northerly flow a little bit there. And at 9,000 feet, 40 to 55 knot winds for that western Aleutian low there, and at 3,000 feet, about 40 to 45 knots there along and in advance of the front, but up to 65 knots, although that's south of the western Aleutians. Turbulence-wise, occasional moderate chop from Adak westward to Shimia and at 2, pretty smooth elsewhere.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining us today is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Thank you for joining us, Eric.
My pleasure, Dave.
Thank you. And you're joining us here to talk a little bit more about satellites and how satellites work, and especially one neat feature that's working over Alaska right now. What is that?
Well, there's a lot of weather satellites and a lot of instruments on these satellites, and there are new generations going up and new instruments. This includes something called the Day-Night Band, which is not a cover band at the local bar, but it's a new satellite that is very useful, especially here in Alaska, especially in the winter.
In the wintertime, yeah, that makes it a little bit hard to use some of the normal tools that we associate with weather satellite imagery.
Right. You know, one of the classic weather satellite instruments is just visible light. What would the human eye see if you were riding on a weather satellite yourself and looked down and it was black and white? You'd see the clouds reflecting the sunlight. And we've got an example from the Pacific Ocean. There's a geostationary satellite, and we can see that the eastern side of the image is in daylight. The western side, it's night over there, so you don't see anything because there's no sunlight over there. And visible imagery, it's very intuitive. You see the clouds just like you see them standing on the ground, but now you're a satellite seeing them from above. But the problem is, what about the night side of the planet? How do you track the storms? How do you know where the rain is, the snow, the weather, if you can't see the clouds? And that's why, just like a television can change from one channel to another, or radio can change stations, satellites can change the frequency of the electromagnetic spectrum that they're looking at. We can go to infrared instead of visible light. You know, it's heat energy. You can see heat, and we've got another satellite picture from the same time, same satellite, out over the Pacific Ocean. That's the infrared side, and we're seeing temperature there. And even at night, when there's no light, everything still has a temperature.
So we're sensing something with a thermometer instead of perhaps the visible side of that, is what you're saying?
That's right. On this depiction, colder features are lighter shades, warmer features are dark. And so clouds tend to be colder than the ground. Clouds are higher in the atmosphere, it's cooler. And so that very same image on the western or the left-hand side of the globe, now we can see the clouds there, even though it's nighttime, because we're seeing the temperatures. And one nice feature is that tropical storm there, just in the middle of the northern hemisphere there, hurricane or typhoon,
That's
depending
that
on
swirly part that we see in the middle of the image?
There you go. You can even see the eye on it there, especially in the infrared image. So we've got two kinds of imagery there from the same satellite, different instruments, you know, different channels like on a television, visible and infrared. You know, it turns out there's no one magic tool. Each has its strengths, each has its flaws, weaknesses. The visible is nice, it's intuitive, it's easy to understand, but doesn't work at night. Infrared is nice, it works at night, you can see temperatures, but there is a catch. What if your clouds and the nearby bare ground or open water, what if those were about the same temperature?
Oh, that's going to be hard to figure out what's going on.
If you can only see temperature and you have two features that are the same temperature, they will look the same. You won't be able to tell. They're camouflaged. This happens, especially, it can happen around Alaska, especially over the ocean when you have low clouds that are the same temperature as the open water.
That happens quite a bit in Alaska.
We have an example. Now, this is from a different geostationary satellite. It's down over the Atlantic Ocean. Look in the South Atlantic. In infrared, we've highlighted in a yellow circle there. There's some patches of clouds, but it looks like there's a clear area in the middle of that image. That's the infrared look. But let's take a look at the visible channel, and we can see there's a stripe of clouds across the middle of that circle that is only visible in the visible. The trick here is that those are low clouds of about the same temperature as the surrounding ocean. So from an infrared point of view, where you're seeing temperature, the clouds in the water nearby are the same temperature, they look the same. It's only on the visible that you can see what stands out as the actual imagery.
Okay.
Two tools, each have their strengths and weaknesses. Can we combine them? That's where the day-night band comes in.
Oh, okay.
It's a super sensitive visible sensor that can actually see by moonlight. It can even see the aurora.
Wow.
And in Alaska, we have long winter nights. We can use that day-night band. Here's an example from that storm that blew the Kullik drilling platform ashore near Kodiak Island in December back in 2012. This image is right near when that storm happened, and it's in the middle of the night in December.
But this looks like visible imagery.
Looks like daytime imagery. It's amazing. That sensor can take any little bit of moonlight and just make the most of it. And we can see so much detail. Even in the northern part of the image there, you can see some aurora up there. The northern lights
That's that band that goes across the Arctic slope?
You got it. That's the northern lights. We're seeing black and white image here,
Yeah.
so you don't get the green or the purple colors
How
there.
about that?
But that is the aurora. There's another example of the day-night band, and this is from January of 2013. It's about 4 in the morning, and this is a snapshot from Weather Service software. And we can even see in the middle of the image, there's the lights of Fairbanks and North Pole over to Eielson Air Force Base. Anchorage and Matsu lights, city lights, are evident as well. We can see, even though it's 4 in the morning in January, there is no sunlight to be had, that just enough moonlight is available that this sensor can see that. So we're trying to solve that puzzle where visible light is good, but only during the daytime. IR is good at night, but you can't see the difference between clouds and ground sometime.
Right.
The day-night band is an attempt to do the best of both with one tool. And it's brand new for Alaska here, and we're hoping to use it in the forecast process and help predict storms, weather patterns, to help get good forecasts for people.
Okay, another tool in the weather toolkit for meteorologists in Alaska and researchers worldwide. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us today. And you can learn more about GINA and the day-night band by going to the web address that you see on your screen. For Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis. Not a lot of change from yesterday. There are a few thin areas there west of Ammonik or west-northwest, but still pretty well solid along the southwest coast, and then kind of tapers off. Still some heavier ice areas in northern Bristol Bay, but sea ice free right up into the central area there. And a little bit of ice getting south of the Forelands and Cook Inlet. Coastal water forecasts, small craft advisories there along the coast of Prince of Wales Island and offshore there with northwest winds 25 knots, 17-foot seas. Otherwise, west to northwest wind at 20 knots for the central and north coast. Northern, central, inside waters, light winds at 10 knots from the north and northwest. Seas pretty slight at 2 feet. And Clarence Strait, northwest 15 knots, seas 6 feet. And then for Monday, Clarence Strait southeast 20 knots with 4-foot seas. Stevens Passage southeast at 15, seas 4 feet. Lynn Canal picking those northerly winds up there at the 25 knots, good for small craft advisories. And the south coast, east 20 to 25 knots, and the north coast, southeast 20 knots, seas 11 to 14 feet. Prince William Sound tomorrow, northwesterlies 25 knots, probably higher gusts as well, out of the northern western bays with 3-foot seas. And small craft advisories for the eastern North Gulf Coast, north winds 25 knots. Gale warnings, western North Gulf Coast for northwesterlies at 35 knots, even stronger gales in the forecast for the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, where they'll be west at 40 knots. Southern Cook Inlet, small craft advisories, west winds 30 knots, much lighter north of the Forelands, though, out of the west at about 10 knots. Then on Monday, northern Cook Inlet, northeast at 15. Small craft advisory, southern Cook Inlet, north 25, and Kamishak Bay, northeast at 30, turns east at 30 for the Barren Islands. Small craft advisories, western North Gulf Coast, northeast at about 25 knots. Lighter winds, though, for the Middleton Island, eastern North Gulf Coast area at 20 knots, and Prince William Sound, northeast at 15 knots. Kodiak Island, looking at gale force westerlies tomorrow along the east side of the island there. 35 knots, Shelikof Strait west 35, and small craft advisories west-southwest 25 knots, Sitkinak to Cape Sarachev with 12 to 14-foot seas. Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, south winds 30 knots, much lighter though for Bristol Bay, southeast at 15. And the outlook for Monday, Bristol Bay, small craft advisories, north 25 knots, seas 7 feet. We've got storm warnings for the south side, Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula from Cape Sarachev to Castle Cape, west 50 knots. Gale warnings on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula for west winds of 35. Castle Cape to Sitkinak, gales northwest 40 knots. Small craft advisories, Kodiak Island for east-northeasterlies at 30 knots. And for the Fox Islands, or cut it in half there, we'll go on Alaska Island south winds 30 knots. And Unimak Island southwest 20 to 30 knots. And for the Adak-Atka area, south to southwest 30 to 35 knots, seas up to 20 feet there, of course on the Pacific side of the islands. And then 45 knots from the south for Amchitka, north 40 knots, Kiska to Shimia. Storm warnings coming into the western Aleutians on Monday, 50 to 55 knot winds from the south-southwest, otherwise good gales, Adak-Atka into Unimak Island, as well as the Unalaska Island, where they'll be westerly at 35 to 40 knots, otherwise southwest 40 knots, central and eastern Aleutians. And then for the southwest coast, east winds 20 to 25 knots tomorrow, gale force easterlies for St. Matthew Island, small craft advisories for the Pribilof, southeast at 30, St. Lawrence Island, northwest 25. Next day, Monday, St. Lawrence Island, brisk wind advisories, northeast 25 knots, and west to northwest 20 to 25 knots for the southwest coast. Pribilof, southwest 25, northeast 30 for Matthew Island. Central, much of the Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow will see brisk wind advisories for 25 to 30 knot winds. A little lighter there toward Kaktovik demarcation point. Brisk wind advisories all the way down to Wales. Next day, you're looking at 15 knot winds from Wales to Cape Thompson, and then brisk wind advisories western Arctic coast, but only 15 knots for the east side and 20 knots on the central coast. For tonight, stays a little breezy there for the eastern Arctic coastal areas, and winter weather advisory for the northwest coast, north side of the Seward Peninsula, Bering Strait coast, St. Lawrence Island for blowing snow, gusty winds. And low pressure there drifts eastward a little bit, keeps it wet and unsettled. Look for several inches of snow over the panhandle into Sunday morning, anywhere from 1 to 5 inches, depending on where you are, elevation and latitude. And moisture, rain, and snow pushes into the eastern Aleutians. Tomorrow stays unsettled for the panhandle, and then that storm mostly the south of Kodiak on Monday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.